G'day, I'm Paul. So it seems like every week there's a new EV rolling out from a manufacturer, and this is the latest one. It is the BMW iX3. Well, when I say latest to Australia, because this has been out for a little while overseas, but we finally get the facelifted version here in Australia. Now this competes with things like the Mercedes-Benz EQC, the Jaguar I-Pace, the Audi e-tron, and this is priced from just under $115,000, and it's only available in one specification. Now the price is pretty sharp when you look at the rest of the competitors, which are all much more expensive, but admittedly most of those offer all-wheel drive as well. Today we're going to do a detailed review of this car, so if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of the review, you can use those time codes on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, scroll down and use the chapters below. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. That's going to tell you every single time we drive a car with blue highlights. Now let's talk exterior design. You've got 6 external colours to pick from, and thankfully they're all free. Also thankfully, all of the blue highlights are a no-cost option, so you don't need everyone to know that you're driving an EV if you don't want to. So that's good news, I reckon. Now, what about the design? Well, this looks very much like an X3, and I think that's probably one of the best things about this, because I think the iX, which we just reviewed recently, you can watch our review of that by clicking up here, it was probably just a little out there in terms of design, whereas this I think is still a very smart looking design. The latest facelift to this brings with it just a bit of a nip and tuck in terms of the way that it appears out on the roads. So you do get this front section that looks a little bit different to the regular X3, because behind here you've got a set of louvers that open and close for cooling, and that means that when the car does need that additional cooling, they just crack open, and when it doesn't, they close up. The interesting thing here under the bonnet, in the iX, the bonnet doesn't open. Here it does open, but it's got this giant plastic cover on it, and there's room under the cover, so I don't know why they didn't install storage there, so it is kind of a weird one. Down the bottom here, you've got a radar and then a couple of slats there for redirecting air. More of that blue highlight down the side there. Sort of full LED headlights, they're matrix LED as well, really good at night time, give you excellent vision down the road. Around the side here, we have a set of 20-inch alloy wheels. For Australia, the iX3 comes with the M Sport package, so you'll see the M badge here and here, and also a very cool looking aero wheel. So this is designed to reduce the amount of drag that the alloy wheel surface creates when it is just powering down the roads. Now, are you thinking of off-roading? Well, get that idea out of your head. It has a 179mm ground clearance, which is kind of okay, but it is just rear-wheel drive here in Australia. Also made in China, which is where they build the Tesla Model 3 for the Australian market. You've got a set of faux vents just tucked into there. Indicator built into that wing mirror with a little camera there for the 360 camera. Privacy glass. Around the back here, you've got these giant blue scoops, which is where the exhaust used to be. LED tail lights. These look really nice and smart, and I love that frosted finish on those as well. Another set of those fake vents, and then iX3 badging just here with a shark fin aerial up the top. Now, what do you think about the design? Do you think that it's good that it looks just like an X3, or do you think it needed a futuristic new design to match its EV presence? Let me know down there. So we're in the iX3. We'll start off with the keys. So you've got unlock, lock, boot, the roundel that you can configure, a little bit of metal trim around the outside there, and then blank on the back. Now, this is a proximity sensing key, so you can just grab the door handle, and then once you're inside, you press the very blue start button to kick things over. Now, the interesting thing with this car is BMW was boasting about the sound being sort of orchestrated by Hans Zimmer, so there's a little bit of cool stuff to know about the car. In terms of the design though, it looks very much like an X3, and that is a really good thing in my opinion, because I think the X3 is beautifully presented inside. You can see there's materials they've used along the dash there, the big infotainment screen up the top there. There is a fair bit of piano black around here, which is a little unfortunate, but for the most part, I do like the way that they've shown it here. And this car really doesn't have that many options, so when you do buy it from BMW, it comes fully loaded with virtually every single thing that you need. So it is a pretty sort of impressive setup as standard. Now, what about your touch points? So that is firm-ish, and then on the door it's firm-ish as well. How firm are they? Well, we've got our gyrometer, we've tested the main surfaces in this cabin. If you want to see how this car compares to others that we've tested before, have a look at the link in the description. Build quality. So I mentioned earlier, this is made in China. A lot of our other BMWs that come to Australia are made in South Africa, the US or Germany, and this feels built like a tank, all nice and solid. What about our door? Sounds really nice and solid. Now, infotainment. So it's driven by this big screen up the top here. It's a 12.3-inch display. This still runs OS 7. So we recently reviewed OS 8 in the new BMW iX. So this is the previous generation of iDrive. In my opinion, OS 8 is a huge step forward compared to this version here, but this is what you've got to work with here in the iX3. So we'll have a quick look at that. You have shortcut buttons down the side there. It's all driven down here by the iDrive controller, which also has shortcut buttons. And then finally, you have configurable controls down the bottom that as you hover over them, they do different functions, and then when you push them in, it goes to that function. It's also capable of doing gesture controls, so you can do stuff like that. But as you can see, it sometimes doesn't work, and I think it is such a pointless feature, but anyway, it does it, and it is there. It also acts as a touch screen as well, so you can just press this to start moving between those menus, and then you can, of course, configure all of the cards here on the main screen to do whatever you want them to do. On the radio front, you have AM, FM, DAB plus digital radio. This car comes standard with a 16-speaker Harman Kardon sound system. Excellent sound system, very nice quality, and it's cool to see that this comes with literally the bee's knees of sound systems as standard fitment. Then on your smartphone mirroring, you have both Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Apple CarPlay is wireless. Look at this, that is very quick, very sharp, and takes up that entire screen, which I think is really impressive. And this is what Android Auto looks like. Android Auto is also wireless, and then it is nice and fast. Have a look at that, very, very impressive. This, of course, also has satellite navigation built into the native infotainment system, and also voice recognition, which you activate here on the steering wheel. Ahead of the driver is another big display, and also a head-up display. Now, with this display here, you can change through all of your menu items on the right hand side using this little button. It'll take you through trip computer, audio, and all that kind of thing. It's a pretty basic setup. It's not quite as advanced as something like the BMW iX. And then when you switch through drive modes, you can see how the screen changes there depending on which drive mode you choose. And then with the head-up display, all of your functions are controlled here, so you can easily select different radio stations just by sliding up and down and then clicking on the station that you're after. Now, moving on to safety technology. So you have autonomous emergency braking that works both forwards and reverse. You have rear cross traffic alert and auto dimming rear vision mirror, radar cruise control. You have a blind spot monitor built into the wing mirror. You've got lane departure warning and a lane keeping assistant, along with a semi-autonomous steering function. Works okay, nothing amazing. And then on the parking front, you have both front and rear parking sensors and a 360 camera. I'll show you what that looks like. So there it is there. So that's your view out the back, and then you have the top-down view. You can then select different angles there depending on what you want to look at. It's okay, it's not amazing. You can see it a little bit blurry there when you try and actually get a better view. I do love this feature though. The reverse assistant remembers your last 50 meters of reverse travel. And what it's able to do is navigate that route on your behalf. So if you do get stuck in a narrow one-way street, it will get you out of there. We actually shot a video explaining how that works and demonstrating it. You can watch it by clicking up here. But on the parking front, it's a pretty straightforward setup. Righto, let's chat about practicality, and we'll start off with your connectivity. So you have one USB-A port down here, and then in the center console you have a USB-C port. There is also a 12-volt outlet hidden just in there. In terms of your phone, where's it going to live? Well, you've got wireless phone charging down there, so you can whack the phone down there if you want to. Phone can kind of squeeze into your cup holder as well a little bit. Speaking of cup holder, coffee. Does it fit my coffee? Yes, it does. It fits my little baby coffee, and the lid does not come off. As verified this morning, I didn't spill a drop. It's got teeth on the side there as well, so that will hold our bottle in without any dramas. This can fit inside the door too. Let's try our big bottle. Look at that. That is a big old door bin. Very impressive. Other storage, you've got your center console here, reasonably sized, nothing sort of too crazy. And then you have a glove box as well. And your comfort, so you have dual zone automatic climate control, you have heated seats for the front row. On seating comfort, so the seats actually look pretty cool. I quite like this design. You've got the blue stitching inside, stitching across the center there, and they're quite sort of huggy in terms of the way that they're set up. In terms of seat adjustment, both the driver and front passenger have electric seat adjustments, so the seat goes forwards and backwards. The base lifts up and it goes down, so does the entire seat. You have electric adjustment for your bolsters to hug you in. You have a manually extendable front section, and then memory for the driver's seat. In terms of the steering wheel, it's manually adjustable, offers both tilt and reach adjustment. And then on our reach test, all of this stuff is easy to reach while you're driving. So, second row of the iX3. Look, knee room is reasonably good, toe room is good, headroom is excellent. Love this panoramic roof, so it's a sunroof as well. Looks really nice and plenty of vision out of that. What about your other creature comforts? Well, you've got these little nets in the back of the seats to hold your documents in or whatever you want to carry. You've got a third zone of climate control down here, 2 USB-C ports, air vents. Then in addition to that, you have a center armrest here. When that rolls out, you've got 2 cup holders. So I'll show you how that works. Bang, one goes in there, and then one goes in there as well. And then in addition to that, you have a little hidey hole just there. Your bottle will also comfortably fit inside the door. This also comes down as well. So if you do need access to the boot, it's a clever little setup. And in addition to that, you have ISOFIX points on the 2 outboard seats and then top tether points as well. So really nice place to be seated. And like I said before, it just feels like any other X3, which is one of the big advantages. The downside though, is that you still have this driveline hump. It doesn't need that because it is electric, but anyway. And finally, our window test. See if it goes all the way down. Oh, Bob's your uncle, look at that. Very impressive. Now let's talk cargo space. So you've got a power tailgate. Once that gets out of the way, you are exposed to a little over 500 litres of cargo space. Beneath the cargo floor, you have storage for your cables and then a little storage nook just a little further in there as well. There is no spare tyre here. Over to the sides, you have a little bit of extra storage with netting on this side. And then in addition to that, you have hooks down the bottom here and also at the front of those seats. 12-volt outlet and then a hook off to the side as well. I'll show you what it looks like with our bags in there. Now, our suitcase. I don't know where it is. It has been stolen, lost, something. So this is going to be our replacement for the moment until we get a new one. It is around the size of a carry-on bag on the plane. So that gives you an idea of how much room you have. Not a bad size boot there in terms of the available space. What you can do to increase the space just a little bit more is drop your second row and that cranks it up to a little over 1,500 litres of cargo space. Now let's talk charging. So it has an 80 kilowatt hour battery, usable is around the 72 kilowatt hour mark. You have both AC and DC charging. On the AC front, it'll do 3-phase charging at up to 11 kilowatts, which is pretty good. And then on the DC front, it will charge it up to 150 kilowatts. Now I mentioned this in our review of the BMW iX that I just don't understand why Tesla with like the Model 3 long range can do 250 kilowatts of charging, yet here they're limited to 150. So, and then in the iX it was like 190 or 195. So I don't know, given there is faster technology out there, I don't know why we can't just do faster charging. But anyway, that's what you have for charging your iX3. So we've hit the road in the iX3. Now I did mention earlier, this is just a single motor setup, and because BMW, it is a single motor attached to the rear axle. So this is a rear wheel drive electric car, which I think is kind of cool because you're getting the funness of a rear wheel drive in a BMW X3 package. So that means it produces 210 kilowatts of power and 400 Newton meters of torque. So it's a decent helping of power and torque there. And I think it really sort of sits in that good middle band of enough to sort of get up and go, but not enough to sort of pull your face off too much. So if we feed on the throttle here, yeah, look, it feels really good. You can tell, again, because it's rear wheel drive, you can tell as you get to the upper end of the throttle position there that it tries to limit how much torque it's sending to the rear. And earlier today when it was wet, I had everything sort of switched off to see how it would work. It acts as an open differential effectively, so it won't let you do anything too silly because it's only sending torque to one side as it goes. It's not really set up as a limited slip differential. So it's not a car that you can drive to sort of to drift and have fun with, but it is a car that has adequate power to sort of get up and going, and then it does all the EV stuff. When you plant the foot down, there's that instant torque available across that rev band. Let's talk about economy. So BMW claims just over 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. We are currently sitting on 18.8. Now that is a really impressive figure, and I'll tell you why. I'm used to, my Model 3 doing something like 17 kilowatt hours per 100 k's, and that is a lighter vehicle than this. That's actually a really good number there and quite efficient for an SUV. So it does show you that when they do put effort into it, they can actually bring the economy of these right down. So I mentioned earlier, 80 kilowatt hour battery, and it gives you a driving range of WLTP, a little over 450 kilometers. That's not a bad figure. In real life, you'll probably be getting closer to that 400 kilometer mark in terms of your usable range, which I think is pretty decent. So given it is a BMW, is it sportier than the iX feels? Well, let's pop it into sport mode. So immediately I can feel the ride get much firmer there. Steering is heavier as well. We'll put it through our corner here. Yeah, look, it's okay. It doesn't have that torque that you find in dual motor EVs where it sort of pins you back in the seat. There's only so much you can send through the rear wheels before it sort of starts going sideways. But look, it is dynamic enough. The body doesn't sit super flat, but given you have the battery seated so low within the cabin, you do get a lower center of gravity, and it does feel sporty in that sense. It's just not going to light the world on fire in terms of dynamic response, but it does feel more BMW than the iX did in that sense. I'll also call out, just while we're driving here, you've got a couple of different regen modes as well. So in the sport mode, if I roll out of the throttle, it feels like it's slowing down more aggressively, but I do have the ability to slide it over into B mode. Now in B mode, when I roll out of the throttle, it'll actually come to a complete stop, similar to the Nissan Leaf or Tesla products as well. It just comes to a complete stop, and then it will just hold the car there for you until you're ready to take off. And then when you aren't in that B mode, it slows down, but it doesn't come to a complete stop. So it still sort of rolls along there a little bit, and then you eventually have to take over and come to a complete stop with the car. BMW claims a 0 to 100 time of 6.8 seconds. This is how it went up against our stopwatch. Now, what about our road noise? So we're on our country road here. Let's dial it up to highway speeds. And look, it's okay. There is a degree of tyre noise coming into the cabin. It's definitely nowhere near as quiet as the iX, and we've got our sine waves here. Let's see what the ride's like. Yeah, that's really impressive. So I did complain in our iX review that the ride was way too soft and it didn't feel very BMW. This, on the other hand, is the opposite. So the ride is firm-ish in comfort mode. You've got to remember this is fitted with that M Sport package, so you do feel that, but it has adaptive damping. So as you move between the three drive modes you have there, you can feel a progression there in terms of ride firmness and also the way the steering feels. Now let's roll this back into comfort mode. What's visibility like? So the good news is it's exactly like any other X3. So I can see clearly down the front of the car there, good visibility out the front of the cabin, big wing mirrors as well. They've got a blind spot monitor built into them, and then visibility out the rear is excellent too. That's a big old envelope there. In terms of parking, look, this has all of those cameras that I showed you earlier, but the steering is super light at low speeds, and you have a turning circle of a little over 12 meters. So it's a pretty chunky turning circle, but really isn't the end of the world. So the BMW iX3, I was actually surprised by this. It's another one of these cars that is an internal combustion car that they've converted to electric, but they've actually done a really good job with it because it's efficient, it's fun to drive, and it just feels like any other BMW, which I think is important for a lot of consumers that aren't quite ready to do the leap to those sort of out there designs like the iX that BMW sells as well. It is significantly cheaper than things like the EQC, the iPace, and the e-tron. They're its main competitors in that sense, but I think where it's going to stumble the most is when the Model Y goes on sale in Australia. At $115,000, that's probably going to get you something like the performance version of the Model Y, which will be similar in size to this. It'll be significantly quicker and probably have more range as well. So that is worth just keeping in mind. But for the moment, I really just think that this is a compelling package, and at that price point, it delivers the perfect balance between a normal car and all the electric stuff that you'd associate with a good EV. So let me know in the comments section, have you bought one of these? What's it like to live with daily? And did you option all the blue stuff so everyone knows that you're being green in your X3? I'm keen for your feedback. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you share it with your mates and hit the like button. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. Until next time, take it easy.